Hi, it's Char, and I would like to share, I do a weekly group with new agents on Monday, and there's a few that are showing up, and they're just kind of struggling with some of the things that they're learning, and how to apply it, and kind of where their place is in all of this. And it really had me do some journaling and kind of look at some things for me, and I'd like to share a few reflections from that. When I look back on when I first got into real estate, I was actually at a brokerage that did a lot of training, and they were known for training, and I did a lot of it. I mean, at any given time, I think I was enrolled in kind of an 8-week course, and then I had a weekly call with a coach, and I was in this learning. I was just a thirsty little sponge, and I couldn't get enough information, and I just kept doing it. I remember sometimes feeling a lot of stress because I was learning all of these things, but I didn't exactly know how to put it into place. But I would come back, and a lot of that was the environment I was in. It was a highly trained atmosphere, and that's what one of their main products was selling a lot of training. And so through that process of feeling stressed, not sure how I was going to do real estate, how this all applies, I kept thinking what I needed to do was to learn more. And that if I couldn't figure something out or couldn't figure out a database, for me to just go take another class, go take another class. And actually what had happened, and it was a little bit of I want to say at the time, maybe a little bit of twist of bad luck, I ended up leaving that brokerage unexpectedly. And with that severing of that relationship, I was kind of forced to think for a little bit and not be in that learning mode of thirstiness and what really was pretty neat in that process, that, you know, when we're learning, it's outside influences coming in and depositing knowledge, and it's an outside influence that's happening. That's why we're there. Keep your mouth quiet, you listen, you learn, knew all of that. But in the thinking process, that's almost kind of like how we mentally digest, is now I could start chewing some of this up, and my inside influences could process all of this outside information. And then through that process, a beautiful thing happens, and you get into what's called a creative stage, or creating process. So you go from learning, and you have to slow down to think. You have to slow down to process what you've learned. And if you don't, you'll kind of repeat the pattern that I was repeating, which is I'm going to go back and take more classes, And while I was doing that, I'm feeling stressed, and I'm feeling anxiety, and I'm feeling like I'm not good enough, and that I'm a copycat, and I'm never going to figure all this out. And the one thing that I didn't allow myself time to do was to just digest it and to think through it and think about how I'm going to process this and align it with who I am. There's a lot of subconscious work that's getting done there, and how to apply it. Because when we're learning, we're not really figuring out how to apply it. You might be told how somebody else applied it, and that was one of my issues that I had, is that when I am listening, I'm learning about how somebody else did it or how it worked for somebody else. I need to take some of that downtime to apply it to my story and how to think it through, and then get into that creativity stage. And it's in the creativity stage that success happens. It's where the magic happens. And it's also where you learn, how can it be done better? How can this be applied differently? And that's slowing down. Now, sometimes we get to pick the slowdown. Sometimes we can schedule a vacation. We might schedule a little meditation, yoga, retreat. But sometimes life blesses us with slowdowns that you may not even see coming. And a lot of these slowdowns could be called a breakup, a divorce, termination of a job, death. Sometimes these slowdowns are masked as what other people might label failure. And it's during those times that you can allow your mind, I guess, if you want, to label something failure, or you can get into that thinking process of, how is this going to integrate with me? How can I change this around? How can I apply what I'm learning right now to get a better result? A few examples, these are so exciting to share. A few examples I'll share with you is Isaac Newton. Now, we all know Isaac Newton. If you don't know Isaac Newton, you should know Isaac Newton. Anyways, he was actually, he's got a hard story. He was a Christmas baby, but when he was born 3 months after his dad died. It's a hard story. But was raised by his grandparents. Was not a good student, actually. But he ended up getting into college, and he went to Cambridge. But when he was at Cambridge, he was in this busy, once his mind activated into learning, and he was thirsty for it, and he couldn't get enough of it, once his mind got into that learning, it's almost a little bit of an addiction because, oh my gosh, it's so exciting, it's so interesting. And he kept going and kept going and kept going. But when he, in 1665, he was at Cambridge. And Cambridge actually had to close for 18 months while he attended it because of the bubonic plague. And so for 18 months, he was forced to think. So he couldn't learn. The college was closed down. He couldn't learn anymore. He had to apply all the learning that he had during that 18 months to think. Listen to what this man did during that time. He calculated the rotation of the moon around the earth, created calculus, he figured out the universal law of gravity, Newton's 3 laws, the reflecting telescope, because he wanted to check his work, and the optics. And he also created science and the theory of physics. That was all during that downtime. This wasn't during his learning time. It was during his thinking time that he was able to process what he knew, and then he could get into creativity. And during that creativity, think about how often in our lives we get caught in just the learning phase and we don't allow ourselves to process the thinking phase to get into the creativity phase. And imagine how different our world would be if the bubonic plague was horrible, but look what it did for Newton. Our world definitely would not be where we're at right now without it. So one other story I'd like to share with you is Steve Jobs. We all know that he was kind of a big wig over at their Apple, and they kind of fired him. And then he went on to create Pixar, among many, many other great things. And it's because we go from the learning to the thinking to the creativity phase that you're able to really integrate things and create new. Because it's in the new that things get done different. I know in my own downtime that I had from when I left one brokerage and was in my thinking creativity stage, that's when I did the One Agent Team, the Secret Foundation, referral network. So there's a lot of creating that happens in there, and it's only trusted to you. So the next time that, you know, life kind of throws a little bit of a curveball at you, or something that maybe you didn't see coming, you know, maybe you should get a little excited, because that could be an opportunity for you to get busy thinking. And then if you allow yourself the grace of a little bit of playtime and creativity, because truly if you can think it, it's all possible. Think back to when the Wright brothers made the airplane. They thought they were crazy, or everybody thought they were crazy until they did it. So that's where the true magic happens. So if you're wondering when that is, allow yourself a little bit of downtime. There's a song out from Johnny Diaz called Breathe. Go watch it on YouTube. It's a great song, and it's just talking about how busy we get in our lives, learning, but we're not allowing that thinking and creativity to happen. So you guys know what? If you like what you hear, please go subscribe to my YouTube channel, Char Klisares Daily Dose. And remember, you know what? We're all connected. I hope that you got a little bit of information on this. The next time you have life throw you a curveball, get excited. It's gonna enter you into a creative time of your life. So you guys know what? We're all connected, and we're all so powerful. So go use your noggin, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.